All right, so here is the scene we're looking at. I'm thinking of making something of this building right here and the reflections in the water. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to compose it. Tad, you're going to be working on the same scene, basically?
Same scene. I'm going to zoom in on the building and the tree and just kind of have a close look at that.
Yeah, I mean, zooming in can be cool too, because then it kind of simplifies the shape. I thought I squeezed out a lot of paint. Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a little overboard.
No, never too much. All right, so you're painting on a 16 by 20, and I'm painting on a 16 by 20 as well. All right, so I'm gonna first establish the water line here, which is just above the center line, and there are some mountains in the distance. And there's a harbor in here, so there are a bunch of masts, like sailboat masts in here. And there's a little building that's further off to the left, but I think I might want to add that in maybe somewhere like this. Just an opportunity to get some interesting shapes into the composition and maybe some color as well. And then over here, there is a restaurant, Barbara's Fish Trap. It's kind of orange in color, so there's some nice color to work with. It would be nice if the sun was directly on the building. It is actually backlit, but that's all right. And then I'm going to try to have some reflections in the water, some of the color of the building reflected in the water. Okay, and then there's a tree behind the restaurant, and then this hill here continues off the top like that. All right, so that's a basic composition. I think I'm gonna have the water sort of come in on an angle like this. Looks like you got your composition more or less mapped out.
Yeah, kind of fine-tuning it.
Looks fun already. Yeah, you got the restaurant here, and then simple shape for the tree and the mountains.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, once I've got the big shapes in place, start becoming a bit more specific. I do want to keep this sketch pretty simple though. I don't want to get overly detailed. All right, I think I want to have some rocks in the foreground here, as opposed to just having water at the bottom. All right, so at this point, I'm just stepping back and looking at the composition and making sure that I like what I see before I progress. And I think I'm ready to lay in the darks. All right, Tad, I like how you got those trees. Those are like such a fun feature. Those really, how would you call it? Like groomed or manicured trees.
Yeah.
Nice, simple shapes. All right, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Just gonna start blocking in some of the darker shapes. So I'm squinting at the scene to simplify the shapes. And then this cast shadow down here. This portion is dark. All right, I think this actually comes down a little lower. And then there's like a rock jetty coming out this way. And it's really dark at the base. There's more rocks right here. Oftentimes when I'm painting trees, I'll put in the trunks first, and then in some of the branches, and then I'll build the foliage around those lines. Again, just looking for simple shapes. And I'm going to try to leave some sky holes in there, so the trees, so you can kind of see through the trees. All right, I've got a mixture of titanium white and phthalo blue for the sky. And I'm scrubbing in using a number 8 natural bristle flat. This brush holds a lot of paint, so I can cover quite a bit of area fairly quickly. As usual, I'll be adjusting these colors by coming in with thicker paint. All right, I got a sort of an aqua mixture for this building here. I think I want to have the roof be a reddish or orange color, For these distant hills, I'm using ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a touch of cadmium yellow medium. And I might lighten these mountains to push them back a bit, but I'm going to start with this color and value here. By keeping the color closer to a mid-tone, I'm able to get more saturation, but I'd still like to lighten up the value possibly to push it back. We'll see. All right, the hills that are closer, I'm going with kind of a dark green here, still using ultramarine and titanium white, but I'm adding more yellow. I'm using cadmium yellow medium. I'm waiting on painting in this building because it looks like the sun is going to illuminate the side of this, or this side of the building, and I'd love to get that bright orange into the painting. All right, I got a warm, darkish green here for some plants, and there's some trees like this, some groomed trees. There's a little beach right here, so I'm using yellow ochre and titanium white. All right, the wet sand is sort of a greenish color. And there's a bit more red in it over here. And I think I might need to lighten it up a bit. I think the value of this might be a little dark, but this is a good starting point anyway. And I want to make sure that this shoreline is sort of irregular. So it's not just a straight line. This area is kind of a parking lot over here. And there's a bunch of cars, and I'm not even sure what else. So I'm just going to put a general color in, and then maybe I'll suggest some details later. Over here it's mostly boats. All right, this rock jetty is actually gray in color, but I want to have it more. I want to have some red in it instead of just having it gray. I'm going to do the same with the rocks over here. Sand goes up like this. All right, this portion of the wet sand here is reflecting the sky, and then there's also little bits of sky reflected here as well. All right, here's the fun part. This building is going to be in light, and so I'm going to go with a bright orangey red to start with. There are windows, but I'll just paint those on over the top of this, keeping this mix fairly thin. I think I want red on this roof out here too. This side of the roof is in shadow, so I added a purple mix to the orange to kind of gray it down. All right, so there's a lot of water here. I'm just gonna go, what do I want that green to be? I want it a little bluer. All right, so I'm gonna just quickly cover this area here. I'm gonna need to lighten this water up quite a bit, but I'll be putting sky reflections over the top, so I'm keeping it fairly thin. I'm usually kind of nervous about having such a big area of water where there's not a lot going on, but I'm gonna break it up with individual strokes of color. So hopefully by doing that, it will make this area really interesting and maybe lead the eye to the buildings. All right, so for these rocks, just going with a gray that I picked up off my palette, and I'll come over the top of this with lighter portions of the rocks. So I'm keeping this mix pretty thin. All right, mixing up a color for the sky reflections. And at this point, I'm not using any medium anymore. I was using liquid, but now I'm going to straight paint out of the tube. I want to build this painting up using loaded strokes. The water is lighter, closer to the shore. There's more sky reflections, and then it gets darker as it gets further from the shore. Tad and I are talking about How and Why books from the 1970s. You know, that had all kinds of fun facts about like animals or fish in the deep sea or animals of the Serengeti. Do you remember having a favorite one that stood out?
I don't know, was there like a dinosaur one?
Oh, there was a dinosaur one for sure. Yeah, I think my favorite one was the one of the deep sea creatures. All right, so I like the value pattern I have here in the water. So I want to keep the value pattern, but I want to create some energy and interest with thicker paint. So I've got pure phthalo and titanium white. And just adding loaded strokes out here. I want to keep the value fairly dark so I don't, like I said, break up the value structure. But I want to get some energy into this dark shape here. Okay, I've switched over to a number 6 natural bristle flat, and I'm trying to keep the brush loaded and honestly just having fun putting on these saturated colors. All right, putting some light on this rock. This is almost pure yellow ochre. All right, these rocks down here, I might darken them if they draw too much attention. I do want to leave little bits of the gray showing through to suggest shadows. All right, here we go. Yeah, I love these isolated strokes in here. It creates a lot of energy. I mean, there's a term they use for that. I don't know the term. I can't remember what it was, but very cool. All right, so here's what I finished up with. It started getting windy out there. The light was changing, so we had to work quickly. This was a really fun painting to do. It's not often when painting in plein air that I use saturated colors. Most of the time I'm graying down my colors. But in this case, I just took the colors that I was seeing and cranked up the saturation. So for example, I saw some little purple notes in the water here. And normally I would gray those down quite a bit, but I just sort of decided to crank up the saturation. The blue sky reflection, same thing. Or the sand on the beach, exaggerating the warmth and color there as well. So the process was basically to scrub in big shapes and then come over those shapes with loaded strokes of saturated color. And I was using a number 6 natural bristle flat all the way through the painting, even for these masts here in the distance. And I kind of like the fact that the masts are thick and sloppy. You know, I like using one brush all the way through a painting. It kind of keeps a nice consistency to the look of the painting. I was tempted to do some details on this building here, but decided against it because I would have had to break out a smaller brush. One of the things I worried about when contemplating painting with more saturated colors was color harmony. I wanted to make sure that I had nice color harmony and not like clashing colors. When the colors are more subtle, you know, you're just going to have more harmony naturally when you're graying everything down. But yeah, when there's more saturation, more potential for clash. But I'm using a limited palette, basically a warm and cool of each of the primaries. And I think that really did help to keep the color harmonious. I'm not pulling in colors that I'm not seeing. So I'm basically just exaggerating what I'm seeing in the scene. And I think that really does help to keep color harmony as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. So check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.